My name is Vince Vitrano. My Wauwatosa success story begins here at Wilson Elementary, home of the Wildcats. When I was in third grade, I was selected for the Gifted and Talented program. I remember my parents thinking that that was a pretty big deal. I also remember them being fairly surprised that I had been selected for said program. One of the big perks of being in GT in third grade was we got to come here to the library and use the computer. It was an Apple II Plus. I won the Pinewood Derby, the whole thing, in third grade, and as you can see, various other accomplishments in the rec department summer playground. We moved across town when I was in sixth grade. I spent about 8 months here at McKinley Elementary. First girl I remember chasing after here at McKinley was Kirsten Funk. She's now married to Dr. Phil Ertl, the superintendent of schools. I think he still doesn't like me. In January of that year, the Space Shuttle Challenger and her crew were lost. I remember it being announced in our classroom, and we spent a lot of time talking about it in the days and weeks to come. And it was actually those conversations that helped me realize at a young age what I wanted to be when I grew up: an astronaut. I continued my interest in the space program, actually signed up for Young Astronauts here at Longfellow, had a couple highly forgettable performances in the school plays. I ran for student council in 7th grade. Apparently I did have a bit of a self-esteem issue here in middle school. Looking through my old yearbooks, I actually found plenty of pictures where I had gone in and graffitied myself. I grew out of it, eventually. Wauwatosa East, class of 1992, elected freshman class president. One of my first duties in office was to initiate the creation of our homecoming float for the parade. Only nobody told me till the week before. We were trying to make a bulldog out of paper mache because we were playing Cedarburg. It was to be like roasting on a skewer. And when that literally fell apart, we hung signs on a trailer that read, "Sorry, we were studying." I played football and tennis, neither particularly well, but both proudly. Some of my fondest athletic memories actually were watching our basketball teams, which were awesome then. State champions my freshman year, state runners-up my junior year. Still had that astronaut thing on my mind. I even went to space camp sophomore year. But something was happening in the classroom. I was struggling to get B's in math and science courses and excelling in English, advanced writing classes, and literature. In fact, here I am with beloved advanced English teacher, Miss Bertarello. It was my experiences in those classes that began to draw me toward a career in media. I began to realize I was probably more likely to become an astronaut by winning an essay contest than I was by majoring in aeronautical engineering somewhere. So it was off to college to study communication. St. Norbert College, class of 1996, put me in a great spot for achievement in life and in sizable debt that I spent 7 years trying to climb out from under. One summer I started working for the Green Bay Packers at training camp, which they held at the college. That's not a bad summer job, right?
What's up, buddy? You got about 2 minutes yet. That's cool. All right.
Like many college students, Vince Vitrano of Wauwatosa has a minimum wage summer job.
Channel 4 even did a story on me. Is that irony? It was an extraordinary time to be around the team, though. Brett Favre was in his 2nd year with the Packers. Reggie White had just come. Mike Holmgren started something that would end with 2 trips to the Super Bowl, including ultimately one for me. And that job would actually prove to be an in for my first professional work as a journalist. I got a job writing for a publication called the Packer Insider. It started as just a freelance article that I wrote for them. They liked it so much, they asked for more. And by the time the season was starting, I was a staff writer covering games at Lambeau Field and County Stadium. I even did some away games, Minnesota, Dallas on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, I was a junior in college covering the Green Bay Packers. Still, I really wanted to try television. I got a job working at the Media Center on campus, learned to shoot and edit video. Hello and welcome on the 2nd edition of On the Bench. I'm Vince Vitrano. I'm the host. Had my own TV show, and it was horrible. But I wrote, I produced, I edited, and hosted, so I really learned how to do everything. It was horrible. Nonetheless, all that helped me land an internship at the then CBS-owned station in Green Bay. Great opportunity, and that actually led to my first job in television right at the same place. I had an internship for 2 months. They offered me a job producing the weekend news. And then right before I graduated, about a week before I graduated, they offered me a job producing the 10 o'clock news, which I took, even though I still kind of wanted to be on TV. About a year later, they offered me some opportunities there, and it eventually turned into a full-time on-air position.
Guys, and greetings once again from San Diego. Well,
You know, I was a news reporter, but in Green Bay, the Packers are the news. And since I actually had a good background in covering them, got to do a lot around the Super Bowls. I covered Super Bowl 32 in San Diego. There were a few times really where it was like an out-of-body experience. I'm looking down on myself in the moment. I'm in the press box, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I am at the Super Bowl. Of course, that was the one we lost, but still. Turned that into a sort of a feature reporting gig and eventually anchoring. I became known as the guy that would sort of do anything, and they let me do anything.
Yeah, sorry.
I jumped out of an airplane with the flying Elvi, bungee jumping, parasailing. I mean, like any weird stuff people could dream up for me to do, I did. And people liked it. And they even put me on the anchor desk, first on weekends and then on mornings for a year. And yet all the while I was sending resume tapes to the boss man at today's TMJ4 because I wanted to come home. You know, and that eventually happened in the spring of 2000. I got a part-time gig reporting here at today's TMJ4. For a while there, I was reporting here on the weekends and still kept my regular anchoring job up in Green Bay at the CBS station. And so I was literally working 7 days a week, but it was what I had to do to get my foot in the door to get the job that I wanted, which was here. Eventually, they offered me a full-time job here, and then by the fall, I was regularly out on the street reporting.
Our Vince Vitrano was live in Chopper 4.
In many cases, I wasn't actually on the street at all. Took hundreds of flights up in Chopper 4.
Okay, we're all a little wet. Check this out.
On the water with the Coast Guard, at 30,000 feet with the Air National Guard refueling F-16s. Well, I wasn't, they were. I had traveled to the bottom of the deep tunnel and to the top of City Hall. And I was just really excited to be doing news, you know, back home. Things made sense to me here. People I knew could see my work here, and it was great. Although, in many cases, I wasn't back home at all. We covered stories in every corner of this state.
Strange things that happen.
I remember early on covering a couple devastating tornadoes out in northwest Wisconsin. Loved to cover politics, had amazing opportunities to witness history. I traveled to Washington to report on the election of Congresswoman Gwen Moore, first African-American from Wisconsin ever elected to Congress. Back in 2000, I interviewed then Vice President Al Gore one-on-one. I mean, I'm 26 years old, sitting across from the Vice President of the United States, and he's going to answer my questions. I mean, he's angry.
We'll retaliate.
Met plenty of other cool people.
Hey, Vince, how are you?
NBC flew Susan and me out to New York City to meet Matt Lauer and Meredith Vieira a few years ago. They totally loved us. You know, and again, sports, huge part of what we do here at today's TMJ4. Maybe my most memorable would have to be covering 4th and 26. I remember that like it was yesterday. Packer fans don't hide their feelings well. They've never felt like that before and never since. Those people were brutal out there.
Amazing display of home run prowess.
Cover the Major League All-Star game here in town, all the hoopla surrounding it, what a bunch of actors and entertainers, including Coolio. Bizarre, that guy actually wasn't a bad ball player. Followed Marquette to the Final Four when it was in New Orleans. We rented a car and drove doing stories all along the way.
Look who just came by. Coach Tom Crean.
Yeah, before we got to the French Quarter, we stopped in Lawrence, Kansas on the way down. Jayhawks were Marquette's next opponent, so we drove around taunting students, and our rented van got egged.
What do you say, one more pass? Okay, no, fine, that's fine.
I was asked to do a couple of consumer stories, you know, test the outrageous claims made by those infomercial product type things, you know, you see on TV. And so I did them. I don't think they thought I was going to do them how I did them.
Not required, just for fun.
All right, test fire in 3, 2, 1, fire. I mean, our consumer unit was pretty tight-laced at the time, and I wasn't.
Whatever happens, just keep rolling.
Jeez.
Came right back at me.
So, what are you doing today? What's going on? Real busy? Out now what? I just kind of...
You just wash my hair. Bring it up.
I've never washed someone else's hair. I wasn't sure how my bosses would take it. I don't think they wanted to like it, but I think they did. I absolutely had a ton of fun doing those stories and cracking jokes on the morning show now. I mean, which is sort of a pretty light and fun affair, and it kind of has to be if you're going to get up and do the news before 5 a.m. But also something that's happened on the anchor desk is it at times is very serious business. as far as indicating how strong this explosion was. Again, we heard from the scientist. I will never forget anchoring our coverage of the Falk explosion. Susan and I went on to break the story a little bit after 8 o'clock, and we did not leave the set until 6 hours later. There had been a massive propane explosion at the Falk Corporation. It leveled an entire building, killed 3 people, injured dozens, and we guided viewers through the breaking news, and it was a very challenging story. You know, and I think we did a really good job covering that story, and that was a big deal for me at today's TMJ4. I think people who run this place saw that I could handle a major breaking news story of that magnitude, that we could deal with all the things that go along with that, and that we could do it right. And so that was a really important moment for me here at the station. And so that's what I do now. I anchor the news. It always, 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 though, will mean more to me here. Many of the people on TV aren't necessarily from here. They've moved here for the job. So the news is the job. For me, the news is our life. Stories we do affect my friends, my family, my community. It matters to me. And I know that makes me better. And so I never did get to become an astronaut.
Ready, hit it.
Warning. Warning.
Although this job got me very close. A few years ago, I got to fly with the Navy Blue Angels. We flew just under the speed of sound, pulled more than 8 Gs in rolls and dives, so much so I even lost consciousness twice. Fortunately, I did not lose my lunch.
FedEx 107 out of 2000, turn right heading 220 and contact departure. Good day.
But I did learn something after all. I think maybe I did make the right career choice.